Hey there, everybody! It is Thursday night. You know what that is.
Hey,
And
it's
by the
get your
way-
cook on.
It is Get Your
Exactly.
Cook On. And guess what? Back by popular demand, the chef is here.
Ta-da!
Glad you're feeling better.
Hey,
That's
thank you. Thank you.
so glad you are. So tonight we're so excited, getting ready for St. Patrick's Day. We're gonna have Guinness mushroom glazed chicken, which I'm really excited to try. And then what kind of potatoes?
We're gonna do an Irish smashed potato.
Ooh.
Is that where they just smash it?
Yeah, so it's like a twice baked potato, but not your traditional twice baked potato. What we're gonna do is we're gonna show you how to take a different spin to that. We're gonna show you a traditional smashed potato, which would be a boiled smash,
Okay.
and then we're gonna broil it. So we're gonna add a little more love to it, create a little crust to it, so it's gonna elevate the potato that we're using tonight.
Fantastic.
So last night, I got to ask you, you were part of the conversation, but I was talking about corned beef versus pastrami. And I was surprised to hear it's actually beef.
They're both the same cut of beef. It's the way that they're prepared. So corned beef is going to be not braised, but brined
Yep.
in a liquid that's going to extract any bacteria that's going to allow it to have this vinegary flavor, right? Salty, which most people think because a brine is equal parts 1 gallon of liquid to 1 cup of sugar to 1 cup of salt. Most people add a lot more salt to that because it helps break up and combine the enzymes. So the enzymes of the meat, it breaks them apart, but it attaches the moisture together. So that's what salt really does in the brining process. So when we roast after we brine, like a turkey
Right.
or corned beef, that it maintains or it allows the moisture, the water content of the muscle tissue to connect together. So chemically combining it
We're talking, this is some serious stuff.
to maintain moisture. And that's the biggest piece to brining anything, really.
Right.
So then pastrami is the same cut of beef, which would be a brisket. So corned beef is a brisket,
Right.
like not your braised or your smoked brisket, but they take that same cut and they brine it, and then most people boil it. I wouldn't recommend boiling your corned beef. Braising it, which would be roasting it open with liquid in it, so it steams and bakes it or roasts at the same time. And then when you're going to take your pastrami is to pack full of pepper, and then you're going to cook it at that point, low and slow. That's what's the difference between the two. So much prefer pastrami because it's not as salty as corned beef. It doesn't have that it's pickling, right? So your bay leaf, your peppercorn, some tarragon, and just regular pepper in it. Coriander is actually in pickling spice. You want to make sure that it's not overpowering what your meat it is, right? But pastrami is a coated piece of beef that is slow roasted.
So there you have the difference. And I know that last night we had about a 45-minute conversation. Everybody thought it was pork or ham or not beef. So
Right.
thank you for
Yes,
clarifying
so
that.
corned beef and pastrami is the same cut of meat, just cut or just
Just
prepared differently. Yep,
Completely different.
absolutely different. You get a totally different texture. You
Right.
get a totally
Texture,
different
flavor.
flavor out of all of that. So a traditional French steak would be beef au poivre, which would be a steak or beef
Pepper.
that is completely encrusted in pepper and then seared and roasted. So pastrami is the same, but different because of the cut of beef that they're using. And then it's slow roasted as opposed to a quick and fast out the door.
Interesting. Well, very good. Thank you for enlightening us. Now,
And tonight we're
Jillian,
doing Guinness mushroom chicken.
yeah, we just mentioned that.
I know, but how do we actually do that? I mean,
Well,
how
let's
does the
talk-
Guinness?
We
Oh,
also,
we're gonna do the cocktail first?
Well, we're gonna get to our mise en place in a second, but we're also making a cocktail on the luck of the Irish tonight. A little bit of a whiskey drink with some citrus. So we're really excited to try that. And I think an egg white is in there too, so that should be interesting. And then what are we doing for our mise en place?
So mise en place, we want to make sure that everything is in its place, right? Everyone at home should have their red potatoes. We want to rinse those off. We want to have them ready to go. We're going to need a pot of water on the stove and going because we're going to be boiling our potatoes. So I got our pot of water, nice and high. Bring this to a boil, a little oil, a little salt in there. We're going to put our red potatoes in there. What we're going to do is we're going to boil our potatoes whole, which will allow us to smash the potatoes. Once we boil and we smash, we're going to add the love to them and broil them. So that's what we want to do. And then we have our mushrooms, our Guinness, our fresh herbs here, straight out of the garden, parsley, rosemary, thyme, still in water, making sure they stay fresh. That's right. And then shallots and garlic, of course, always. We've learned that shallots and garlic are kind of the necessities of cooking, right?
I'm loving those two, that's for sure.
And then we got some cremini mushrooms as opposed to buttons tonight. The reason we use cremini is because it's a baby bella, right? So everyone knows what portobello mushrooms are. And they're smaller and they flip them. They're a little sweeter and they're not so earthy like a portobello. So it'll be more comparable to a button mushroom with more flavor behind it. So it's gonna have a lot richer mushroom or earthy tone to the dish that we're making. We could use button mushrooms. The reason we want to use the cremini is to capture the mushroom flavor.
I love that you're explaining the difference because just picking up a mushroom, they're very different. They have a different flavoring.
And mushroom, yeah, absolutely. And mushrooms are very, very diverse, whether it's button, portobello, cremini, oysters. It goes on and on and on and on and on about.
I have some special Worcestershire sauce.
I see this.
Now, I knew you didn't know, but this is a special treat for tonight. This is directly from Wisconsin, brewed with Pabst beer.
Really?
Oh,
Little additional love there.
there you go.
So mushrooms are very earthy, right? So obviously what they do, if you're not familiar with what mushrooms actually do for our society or our world, there's a documentary out on that. Check it out. Because
Called mushrooms?
yeah.
What mushrooms do for you?
Well, it teaches you what in reality mushrooms do. So mushrooms re-inhabit the earth. They take something that's decayed and bring it back to life.
You gotta fit them in the tight space.
So once you learn that, me as a chef, holy moly, this is amazing, right? So
Okay.
learning the flavors of mushrooms and what they do. You get into the oysters, the king oysters, you get into these exotic mushrooms that people are afraid of and they're scared, shiitakes, all these different things. You can find them at the grocery store. You can go down to your local Lely market. If nobody knows where Lely's located, it's on Dobson and Elliott Road in Mesa, and it's a international market. They have pretty much everything you're looking for from all over the world, not just a Asian background, but everywhere from Brazil to Argentina to Japan to India. So all these different things. So
Now, what kind
utilizing
of
that.
mushroom is the one that the pig goes to find?
The truffles, right?
Truffles.
So truffles are in the Midwest, typically like Nebraska, South Dakota area, where only a pig snout can sniff out the smell of a truffle. A truffle would be comparable to the filet mignon.
Oh,
Right, so in
Yes.
beef, filet mignon is always the highest. The truffle is actually the most rare. Morels are the same, right? So morel mushroom is something that is very, very rare to find. So when you go hunting for those, you have a little sidekick with you
and he
That-
helped me find
that-
them.
Sniff them out.
that then finds them for you. So there's a season for it. And when that season comes, people
Grab
go-
your pig and go find
people
some
go find them because,
truffles.
yeah, and the morels are the same. So it's a tiny little mushroom, like a cap that's half the size of this guy, probably like the size of that right there, little tiny stem on it, and you may find 6 in a day when you're talking 12 hours of searching. And you get to go
That's
back
why they're so
and you
expensive.
sell them for lots of money. So
Interesting.
the flavor profile is completely different, right? So when you start experimenting and start learning about how these flavors interact with the food or the dishes that we're making, that's where you start to decide, what are we trying to do here? What are we looking for? Remember, we're always trying to teach, what's our end result,
Right.
right? So today the cremini is what we're going to utilize to
Fantastic.
get our end result.
All right, well,
Let's
let's get
do it.
cooking.
All right.
I'm excited. I'm gonna move this out of our way for our special drink later.
So first and foremost, we got our pot of water. If you can see, our pot of water is just about ready to boil.
And then our oven is on.
Our oven is on at 450. We want to make sure that our oven is on at high. 450 is what you're looking for. 500 if you got it. If not, it's not too big of a deal.
Want me to get one?
Yeah. I'm just gonna put a little bit of oil into there, just so then that way it helps with capturing any dirt that I have not rinsed off of our potatoes. So the reason we add oil to our water, it's not so that pasta doesn't stick together. We actually add oil to our water when we cook pasta or when we're boiling potatoes, is to actually combine the dirt. So it's gonna collect any residual dirt and allow it to keep our potatoes clean. That's what we're looking for. So I've got all our red potatoes. They've been rinsed off already. We're gonna go ahead and drop them in nicely.
We have a few extra guests tonight, so we're gonna make a few extra, but you probably don't need as many as we're putting in.
And you want to make sure that they're covered. So as we see, we got some water there. We'll put a little space. I'll add a little more water to it. In the water? Or in general? As much as you'd like.
And then.
So the question is, how much salt do you use when you're cooking? As much as you like. I prefer the least amount of possible. Salt enhances flavor, so you do want to add that when we're cooking, but you don't want to overboard it, right? Next question.
Can we substitute beef for chicken? And if so, which?
Backwards, can we substitute chicken for beef in this recipe?
We're making sure.
Providing chicken.
Right. So chicken, we're gonna substitute for beef, right?
So they wanna know if they can.
Substitute, the way that you said it was, can we substitute this for that?
Beef for chicken.
Substitute the beef. Okay, so yes, you could.
We're all confused, but can you use beef? Is the question.
So yes, you could use beef, right? What are you gonna use? It's hard to say because it depends on what your time frame is. So depending on your time frame is what you would want to use. If your time frame is short, you're gonna want to use like I'd say flank steak, but flank steak's not gonna be able to get what you're looking
Tenderize,
for.
right?
Exactly, right?
It's gonna be too tough.
Yeah, it's hard because when you're gonna add beef, a cube steak, which would be comparable to what we're gonna do today, is something that is a cut of steak that's been charcutered, but beat up enough with knives or blades to tenderize the meat. So you can do that. You could use a cube steak. You could use, if you wanted to use a higher grade steak, so a ribeye, filet, or a New York strip, yes, you could. So you could make that substitution. It all is going to change is the cook time. You'll sear it the same, you'll let it rest, and then we'll make the sauce to go on the top.
Okay.
Is it gonna be the same? Not so much, right? what I would recommend is when you're gonna use beef for this application, you're gonna be wanting to add a little more pepper to it, because that'll help all the other flavors combine with the beef. The chicken is such a neutral protein that it's gonna adapt to the flavors that we're adding. So when you do beef, you're gonna wanna be a little more heavy-handed on the herbs that we're using and even the beer, because we wanna make sure that we capture that flavor, so then that way it enhances the flavor of the beef.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's hard to,
It's not easy, it's not just a simple substitute, put it in and make it the same.
right, because
little
it
bit
will
different.
be exactly the same, but totally different, because it won't be following the recipe to the T. It will be modifying due to what kind of beef that you're using. If you're using a cube steak, very similar to the recipe, real quick sear, finish, and then we'll be able to top it with our sauce, as opposed to when you're doing a New York strip or a tenderloin or a fillet or a ribeye, even a sirloin steak, you're gonna have to sear, you'll have to finish it in the oven. I would recommend you sear, set your beef aside, make the sauce, put your beef back into the oven and braise. When you braise, which is roasting with liquid, that's where you're gonna get the flavor, and that's what you're looking for.
Got it.
Mhm.
Good question, though.
So we
Great
have,
question.
we have our red potatoes going. These guys are gonna go for about 10-12 minutes.
Okay,
15, just depending. We got one guy here that's pretty big, but all we're looking for is fork tenders, something that we can stick a fork into or a knife
and slip out.
where it goes nice and easy in, because we want to be able to smash the potato. We want it to be cooked without us forcing it to be pressed, right?
And make sure all the potatoes are covered with water.
We do
That's
want
really a
to,
key.
we do want to make sure they're all covered. We don't need to cover it with a lid. You can if you want to. If you do cover it, it might shrink the cook time, because we're capturing all the heat, which is allowing this to stay hot faster. So as it's open, it'll be okay. We'll keep an eye on, make sure it doesn't come to a rolling boil, so it's not boiling over the top of our
Because
pot.
ours are a little full.
We're good. Yeah.
We're good?
Yeah, okay.
We're good, all right.
So
Now
then
what?
what we want to do is we want to cut our mushrooms.
Okay,
So I've already started
okay,
because of our process, and the reason we're gonna cut our mushrooms first is we want to make sure we're utilizing our cutting board appropriately. We want to cross contaminate,
mhm,
right? So we don't want to handle any raw chicken until all of our vegetables are cut and out of the way. And all that I've done is I've just sliced them up. They're all pretty. I try to keep them as thick, but not. I try not to keep them this thick, but sliced enough to where they'll have body after we saute them. So we want to make sure that we maintain the integrity of the mushroom. We
Okay.
keep the flesh, right? We don't want them so thin that they're just gonna turn to paper and fall apart when we cook them. Mushrooms will hold up during the cooking process, but if we slice them to where they're a little more meaty, like not that much, but you see, half that
about half
size
that, yeah.
is what you're looking for, and they don't have to be exact, because we are gonna saute, but you don't want them to be
Two
too
totally different thickness.
right, just for the cook time process. So if you're comfortable with your knife, you can slice mushrooms quick and fast. If not, take your time, rock and chop. Use the claw, right? The claw is the big key.
Absolutely.
When I do, as you see, I just use the front and the tip of the mushroom to make that chop, because I'm moving my fingers back to my thumb and chopping at that same consistency, which allows me to have a more unified cut.
Absolutely. I do want to say shout out tonight to all of those that joined us from Shade Trilogy, or from Trilogy at Verde River. Welcome, you guys. I love that you join us and have parties within the community on Chef Night. So thank you guys so much for being loyal to our Chef Night evening, and we love having you guys all join.
So
That'll be Mary Ann
next,
and several others of you.
perfect. Next, let's get our chicken breasts ready
Okay,
to sear, right?
Perfect.
So let's grab our chicken breast here.
Now, are you gonna send them to you?
What's that?
You have to send them.
Yeah, and that's okay. Ooh, we got some healthy breasts here. So with these guys, they are connected. And what we want to do is we want to take off that center membrane. So you just cut off one side. You're going to cut off the other side. You're going to take this fat
absolutely.
piece, you're going to cut that right off too. If there's any ligament in the middle or on the inside of the breast like this, all you're going to want to do is just take your knife. You're going to make a slit right down. And then you'll be able to cut.
Because if you don't cut that out, it's pretty tough.
So this will never be able to be chewed, right?
Exactly.
So this piece here, it'll never be able to be chewed. And then when you butterfly, you can two ways. You can take your knife in your hand and you can run down the chicken breast like this. I prefer to hold the breast upwards like this and allow myself to guide my knife through the breast to get a better, straighter cut. So all I'm doing is firmly holding it and using my knife to go straight down.
Okay,
So
he
that
makes that look so easy.
to make, well, so I'll show you now. So now we have very relative uniform.
Absolutely.
The reason I hold it that way is for that. So when you use your knife this way, well, let's clean this guy up. When you go and you make this cut, it's harder to keep your knife steady, to keep it flat.
Right.
Right,
And I
'cause
see that
it's-
it's slipping underneath too.
it's
The little
go-
Piece of meat.
The blade is going up and the blade's going down. So depending on how you're holding it, right? Which makes it harder. That's why if you hold it upright and allow you to make that cut. So now that we're in it, we'll just go straight across with
And
that.
just finish it up.
Because you'll see you'll be cutting up or you'll be cutting down. It's hard to hold your knife completely flat to create that uniform
I can see
butterfly,
that,
right?
yeah.
So we can see just right now by looking at it, you see how it starts up
not
and then it
exactly
goes down,
even.
right?
Where that's definitely much more even. Great technique
Be-
difference.
And it is. So at first, you'll see that when you cut down the middle, like such, is that you're going to hold that breast firmly and then just start your cut. Once you start the cut, will allow you to then guide your knife through the rest of it. And then you can move and adjust accordingly so that way you're able to create that uniform cut. So you're going to top side up first and you'll stand it up. And then all you're going to do is you're going to make that cut right in the middle. And then you're going to stand it up again. Pretty much hold that breast so that way when you make your cut, it'll
It's
be
just
a
so
lot
even.
more
Oh, yeah.
uniform on both sides, right? So when you do this, it all depends on your application, right? For us, our application is feasible. We're wanting to do this because of what we're doing right now. When you butterfly your chicken breast, all you're really doing is shrinking your cook time. So if you got plenty of time, I recommend keeping your breast intact because you are going to allow the integrity of the breast or the tissue of the meat to stay the way that it's supposed to. You'll notice when we make a cutlet like this, it won't stay as tender as if you kept it whole like this.
Okay.
Because we've already deteriorated the integrity of the flesh. Right?
Interesting.
So that's a big piece to it. And, you know, it's all cook time. So we could pound these out if we wanted to, and cook time becomes less. But we want to make sure that we have a nice, healthy chicken for our end result. So that's why I always start and then just stand it up. And then that way you're able to create the cut that you're looking for.
Yeah, it's really great, cutting tip.
So you see right away that it's a lot more uniform.
Absolutely.
Then the
Really
other
see
one.
the difference.
The butterfly. So what happens is you start up and you don't know that your knife blade faces up or your knife blade's facing down. So the slightest degree, and you keep going and going and going, look at that. Or you keep going, you start here and you go and you go and you go and you go.
Or even up and down. I mean,
That's what I'm
might
saying.
even-
You'll notice you're up too high and then you'll move it too far down and then you cut down and then you got to go back up and then you go back down. Then you got this zigzag chicken breast going on.
We don't want the zigzag.
So that's what you want to make sure when you're butterflying. Do a little hand wash here. Actually, Beth, if you could grab us a sheet pan. And I'll grab us some foil because we're all about easy cleanup. Or wax paper, parchment paper, anything works. And all we're gonna be doing is we're just gonna layer chickens out on this. So that way we can salt and pepper all of our chickens at the same time instead of doing one and one and one and one and one, right? So that way, when we go to sear, it'll be a nice, easy process. It'll roll right through. You won't have to worry about stopping and washing your hands. Because when dealing with raw chicken, aka poultry, you want to be very, very cautious of cross-contamination. Dealing with raw poultry is the number one reason that people get foodborne illnesses. So you want to maintain that and make sure that we're not going to cross-contaminate everything. Because if you touch raw chicken and then you grab your salt and pepper shaker and don't realize it, next thing you know, you grab your salt and pepper shaker to move it out the way and butter some toast, and you may get sick. So it's something that you want to be cautious of and you want to be aware of. So these guys, we're gonna salt and pepper. We got our little garlic sea salt here. Our black pepper. Well, so this is mute.
Looks great.
So let's take a look here at our potatoes and let's see where these guys are at. So we've got just barely in, right? So we talked about fork tender. If you're just stabbing through, it's still firm to press the knife in. We're not quite there yet.
Okay.
So we want to let those ride for just a little bit longer. You see that the ones that were further down enter a little bit more, but as soon as you press into that, it gets firm. We want to go a little longer. So then that way it's nice and loose. It's least amount of resistance when you're pressing those in, right?
Gotcha.
So those guys,
Pull this
let's
off
get you
that.
right here in a bowl.
That would be better. Perfect.
Perfecto.
We're melting our butter on the cooktop.
Well,
Getting
we
it
were-
soft anyway.
We were thawing our butter
Thawing.
from the freezer.
Perfect.
No worries. Okay, so now with our chickens, we're gonna sear. So we're gonna need another plate, which is here. For our chickens that we already sear. We want our pan to get nice and hot. Remember, when we're searing, we're dealing with high heat
Absolutely.
and a little bit of fat. So when you put that chicken in there, or your steak in there, your pork chop, you hear that. Like last month, it's creating the crust.
Yep.
It's sealing in the juices, and that's why we sears, because we want to make sure that we seal in all the moisture of the muscle tissue, so that that way, as it cooks, it'll move towards the center, and then when we let it rest, it then flows back into the meat, which allows us to have tender meat,
Yep.
tender beef, tender pork chops, right?
Right, and the outside tastes amazing. So I mean, it's
You,
nice to
yeah,
have
you
that.
get that
searing.
caramelization. Yep, absolutely.
All right, so on we go.
Yeah, we're ready. So this guy's gonna get going. Chicken's ready to sear as we need it to. So let's let our pan heat up just a little bit. We got a little more than everybody else, so no big deal. What do you think? Want to move on to the cocktail while our pan's heating up a
Let's
little
do
bit?
that while the pan's heating up.
All right.
Absolutely.
So
We may as well get started with something fun.
that's right. So we're gonna need some whiskey. We're gonna need our shaker. Here.
Mhm.
Perfect. We're gonna need,
You can fill that up halfway,
Yeah.
nice.
yes. I'm gonna grab another little cutting board so we can cut our fruit.
And we have a birthday girl in the audience. My mother's in the audience, so we'll make a couple and we'll bring her one.
What? Happy birthday. So when we're juicing any type of fruit, we want to make sure that we're gonna press. We're gonna break up the juice. We're gonna release the juices from the segments. We're gonna allow the tissue inside the citrus to be broken. The reason we want to do that is so when we squeeze, we get all the juice and we don't
Right.
shoot the juice.
Now, we are
everywhere.
using an orange instead of a tangerine as the recipe calls for, but you can interchange them, kind of like what we've talked about before, right? You can interchange a
Absolutely.
similar flavor.
So the difference between the orange and the tangerine is this will be a lot sweeter than the tangerine. The tangerine's gonna have more of a sour taste to it. And not sour to be sour like this, but compared to an orange,
So,
yes, it'll have more of a tartness
okay,
to the palate. So what we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna wanna put our ingredients into the shaker.
so we're squeezing a little orange in there, right?
Mhm.
Using our hand to strain it for seeds.
Really easy stuff.
I know, he makes it look very easy. It's a little harder than that at home. You can also use a juicer
Well,
to juice
so
it.
grab a pair of tongs. I'll show you this little kitchen trick. If
Tongs.
you're having troubles with squeezing or juicing any fruit, if you place your fruit
Oh.
inside the tongs and then like.
I'll give it a little leverage.
Now, you're able to get all the juice that you're looking for with half the amount of effort.
Without even using a juicer.
We like half the amount of effort, right? How
Good
do,
trick.
how do we make it easier? So this is a good one. It's really easy to use. All right, so we got the juice of our citrus in there. We're gonna need a little maple syrup. So we're gonna need a 1/2 ounce of maple syrup. We have our little jigger.
I have it, yes. Grab that. Now, I've heard that this is really tasty, so I'm super excited to try it.
Okay, and then we're gonna need 2 ounces of whiskey. Tonight we've chosen Redbird.
Okay.
If you have not had this, this is a really good whiskey. Some of you have the traditional Bushnells or the Jameson. That would be your traditional Irish whiskeys. One, two. Okay. We got that in there. And then we're gonna shake. So the recipe calls for an egg white. You can put your egg white in and you can shake. Tonight, we're gonna play with something.
We're gonna attempt it. Okay, but we're excited to try.
So when shaking, you always want to give it 30 shakes.
Okay.
Why 30 shakes? I don't know the answer. All I know is the chemical reaction after. Shaking it.
30 times.
Were you counting? No one was counting? So
Hey,
30
you're
shakes.
pretty fast.
So
I'll
if you
some
want,
ice in
put
there.
some ice into
You
there.
betcha.
And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna move over to our egg white. We're gonna froth this, or attempt to froth. So if you have that little teeny tiny guy that can froth it, this is what you wanna do. We're gonna try to create an egg white froth like such that we can put over the top. So all I'm doing is basically pulsing this, not to make a meringue, but to make a froth. So if we continue to beat this for quite some time, we would make a meringue. Let's go a little bit more. It looks a little watery still. I think we're where we want to be with that guy.
So how do you know the difference between frothing and meringue? So like, what's the texture difference?
Okay, so right now, see how loose it is?
The meringue is stiffer, right?
And foamy, right? So
Mhm.
this is a froth. A meringue would be, there's two different, there's a soft peak, which would be right as it starts to combine, right as it starts to emulsify.
Is it more
into-
smooth versus frothy like that? Okay.
So a soft meringue would be as it's just starting to create that emulsification, so a permanent set. That's what emulsification is. So that it's combining the air with the egg whites to create this motion. It's also adding heat. So as we blend, we're adding heat to the
Right.
process. That's what creates. When you get to a stiff peak is what you're looking for when you make meringue. A stiff peak, you'll be able to take something and make a figure eight. When you make that figure eight, a stiff peak will stay and you'll be able to see a figure eight. The soft peak, you'll make the figure eight and you'll see it and then it'll fade back
Fade
into the form that it's, the vessel that it's in anyway, right?
Gotcha.
So just the froth is what we're looking for.
Okay.
So what we'll do now is we're gonna strain. We're gonna take some of these. Just so we can capture the froth on the top. So here it is. And then if you grab a spoon there. Just take our froth. Layer right on top. Take a little fry here. Right there.
Oh, look at that.
Is your luck of the Irish.
Fantastic. Can you pop one more real quick to take for the outdoor? And then we're gonna
This
keep
guy.
one. We're gonna
We
keep
wanna
one here
Drop this one.
for our show.
So everyone, take a second, take a look at your potatoes. Want to make sure that our potatoes aren't over boiling, right?
I turned ours down just a little bit.
Yeah, so we've added a prop here. So that way we can do that guy. This one. It's right on top.
Yeah, that's perfect. I wanna just give our little extra guests tonight a sample to try while they're waiting. But this looks amazing. Fantastic. All right. So checking our potatoes.
Yep.
Who am I taking these to?
You're just taking the one. This one's saving here as
Oh,
our,
perfect. This is going to the birthday girl?
yeah.
So we're gonna check our potatoes. So now as we see, lot easier to press in. See that?
Yeah,
See how much easier?
and I do need to try this though. Let's try this. Oh, that is good. That is really good. And I'm not a big whiskey drinker, but it's excellent. Really refreshing. What do you guys think out there? Do you guys like the drink? Has anybody started drinking? Hold up your drinks. Jen, are we seeing people with drinks in their hands?
I see a couple people eating already.
Oh, people are eating already because we did a lot of talking tonight. We need to catch up. You guys are already having dinner.
We have our pan. It is
Okay,
nice
hot.
and hot, let me assure you. And we're gonna add our oil. See how it
Oh, yeah,
ribbons out, right?
absolutely.
As it ribbons out, it's okay. We're gonna wanna sear. Want to remember not to overcrowd your pan. Right?
Oh, wonderful. With the attendees. Those are looking really good.
And get it slightly. With our potatoes now, if these guys are finishing up. We want to strain our potatoes.
White one. Still hot?
Little hot.
All right, back over here.
Did a little flip.
Looking good. There.
Some foil on this guy. Okay, perfect. Now we're gonna wanna get our butter. The butter's been softening, but we're gonna wanna melt it. So as our butter's melting, what we're gonna do is we'll pop it into the oven. Brand new, the microwave oven.
We have a good question. All right. Tell us what it is, Jen.
If they don't raw egg, why is it?
So the reason they say not to eat raw eggs is because it's not the actual egg itself that is harmful to you. It's actually the shell of the egg that is harmful to you, right? So salmonella that comes from eggs doesn't come from the egg inside the shell. The bacteria grows on the outside. So if you're having pasteurized eggs is a whole egg that's been blasting to kill any bacteria on the outside of the shell. If you're going to consume an egg, crack the egg, wash your hands, consume the egg. So like Rocky does in his orange juice, they're not
You can
dealing with
eat the egg.
pasteurized eggs,
Okay.
right?
Interesting.
So salmonella comes from the shell of the egg. It doesn't come from the actual egg itself. And that's one thing that people are leery or scared of. So yes, you can consume raw egg. Do they recommend it? No, because it can be mishandled, which then
Because everybody might care for it, not care for it the right way.
illnesses. Right. So as you see, we got a nice color over here
Oh,
on
yeah.
our chicken.
And meanwhile, we're melting our butter.
While our butter's melting, while our chicken is just finishing up, we're gonna want to take our pressures. We'll wash with a knife here.
Perfect.
So we got our pressures. We're gonna take some time. And
Time.
we're just gonna, all I do is if you grab one of the stems and then take it from the top, be careful, just gently pull the leaves off. And all we're trying to do is pull off the leaves here. So that way you can chop it all the way up if you wanted to, but we're really wanting to leave the stem out, right? So as you see, if we're pulling it like that, and it comes off of the stem easily, that means we're taking the hardest part of the stem. The top piece is very tender, so we don't have to worry about crunching and chewing on that
Right.
as we do that. Let's take a look at our chicken there.
Yeah.
'cause
let's
I
take a look at
imagine-
it. We can put the next piece on. Ooh. And what's the feel you're feeling for? What are you
Okay,
looking for?
so when dealing with anything, what I feel is the tenderness. So how you can tell is if you hold your hand nice and loose, press right here, that's rare.
Okay.
Now touch your thumb to your first finger. First finger, that's medium rare.
Right.
Feel here, right?
Okay.
Nice and loose. Then go to your next one, medium,
Yes, definitely.
medium well. Well done. So if you see the
Okay.
difference in how
How that feels.
that's the texture of the meat. So when you press, I
And how
can
is
tell
chicken supposed to be?
chicken should be right about here.
Okay.
You want it to be firm, but you want it to be, you want it to bounce back a little bit. So the internal cook temp of chicken is 165,
Okay.
and that's what you're looking for. So those guys are working, those are almost ready. And get back to here to get in the butter, bless you. So like I said, all we're trying to do is release most of the stem, right?
Right.
We don't want all that stem in there. And all we're gonna do is we wanna get all that love, because that's what we're gonna add to our butter to then put on our potatoes.
So how are you guys doing tonight? Is everybody cooking along? Do you guys have any additional questions? I know some of you have actually finished your dishes already, but who has any additional questions while you're cooking? Let us know, put it in the chat box. Jennifer is here to monitor and help you guys out with your questions getting answered. We do have our wealth building coming up. Let me grab that. Our seminar is coming up March 16th, which is 1 week from tonight. And we're going to talk about wealth building, helping you grow wealth for you and your family. We're really excited about it and making sure that all of our clients and friends really understand how to grow your wealth through real estate.
Here's some other things. We always like to tell you about the different books that we read, and this tax-free wealth teaches you all about cost segregation. We'll talk a little bit about that in our wealth building seminar. And then this book was written by Gary Keller, and the reason why it's so informative is he actually interviewed over 100 millionaires that were making $1 million a year in passive income.
Wow.
So it has all of their biographies and how they built their wealth through real estate. So we're going to be sharing some really, really great tips and some great books that they can read.
Right. So it's a nice diversity. If you have all of your assets in one place, it's nice to diversify and have some real estate as well, if you don't already. So when the market drops or changes, you have wealth in multiple places, which is really something great to have for your future. So we'd love to work with you on that.
Yeah, more wealth has been created in real estate than all the other mediums put together. So real estate is certainly the play.
Right.
We can't wait to see you guys next
We'd
week.
love to see you. If for some reason you guys haven't been seeing any of our wealth building information and sign up for registration for this event, please put it in the chat box, put your email in there, let us know. Jennifer will make sure that you get the invitation of this. We have started sending them out, so we want to make sure that all of you have seen it. And we look forward to seeing you next Thursday.
And if you'd like us to just meet with you at your home, discuss your personal wealth and how we can help you structure a plan for you, it doesn't have to be online, guys. So we can certainly come to your house and make it special just for you.
Absolutely. We'd love to do that.
Thanks, guys.
Great.
Everyone received email at 6:45 today, so if you guys did not receive that email.
Okay, so the email went
check
out.
your spam Or reach out to me.
So 6:45 PM tonight,
Everybody should have it.
that went out. So definitely take a look for that. We'd love to see you guys there. We're missing a chef. You'll be right back. Stay tuned. A couple other things. We have our next cooking event already. So we are doing a brunch and we're super excited about it. We've never done a brunch yet. So we're gonna have quiche and French toast with, having some amazing toppers, bananas Foster's topping and cherries Jubilee. It might be something that even the kids can get involved with. So we'd love to see you guys, invite your families and make it a brunch, but at 6 o'clock. So we are excited about this event coming up. So looking forward to seeing all of you guys register for that. And it might be fun to prepare it, practice, and then have a brunch at your house on a Sunday. We'd love to have you guys join us for that. And the chef is back. We're ready to put some more chicken on.
Yep, we're getting more chicken going. We're wanting to make sure that we have our herbs chopped up for our potatoes. I just pulled the butter out of the microwave.
Great.
We're chopping up all these fresh herbs. We want to put these right inside here.
This would be amazing in there.
Mhm.
You know, I've really noticed the difference since we've all been cooking together. The fresh herbs make
Holy
a
cow.
huge difference.
Oh my goodness.
huge difference for the way your sauces taste, the flavoring of the meat, the flavoring of the sauce, the flavoring of the potatoes. It's dramatically different. So it's worth the extra effort to go buy fresh.
Everyone has dry spice.
Right.
Dry spices work.
In a pen.
They
Always.
work, but not to the same altitude as the fresh herbs. The fresh herbs is where you're really gonna get a bang for your buck because you're gonna be able to pack a lot of flavor.
Absolutely.
Just doing something simple like this. Rosemary, thyme, garlic, butter, grill some steaks, put this butter over the top. You could take those steaks, you could chop them up in cubes, you can mix some of this butter, throw it in your air fryer. 7 minutes, boom, delicious steak bites. Just that fast. So if you're in a hurry, you know, we all get busy, right?
I do.
So doing things like this, it's so versatile because you can add it to anything. You can
Right.
add it to fish, you can add it to beef, you can add it to pork. And as you see, you can add it to potatoes. So
Right.
you see how that goes. We got our sheet pan there.
Yep. You want this over here, maybe?
I'm sure right there should be fine.
And move this by the chicken?
So all we're gonna do is we got our potatoes, we're gonna lay them out on a sheet pan like such. Not to overcrowd, but we want to make sure that we can get them all on. What we're trying to do, start here with the palm of our hand. We're going to press down. And we're not killing it, but we're just smushing it. We're breaking apart the flesh from the skin, right? So for those who have sensitive hands, you could put a paper towel here. You can press it down. If you work with hot stuff all the time, makes it a little easier. But all we're doing is we're just pressing down our potato. We're smashing it to break it apart while keeping them together like, right? So that way they're kind of like their own little potato pancake kind of setting. But we want to break it apart because we want to be able to allow our herb butter
Get
to
inside.
get inside. That's right. Move these around so we can fit them on. And a brush, if you have one, or a spoon, I guess a spoon. Either way, I got one right here we can use. So that'll be all right.
I do have bread.
So if you got a brush, you can use a brush to brush it on. If you have a spoon, you're just going to want to spoon it on. It's almost like the spoon technique's going to work a little bit better for this one.
Right,
So
it's a
we
little
capture
thicker.
the herbs. We want to make sure we're able to capture those herbs on there.
Well, you can see how smashing it, making it a little flatter, lets the herbs sit on top,
And allows the butter to melt.
melt in. Yeah, I love
soak
that.
right in.
I can honestly say, I don't think we've ever seen it done this way, so I really like the opportunity to see it done a little bit different.
Yeah, because everyone has mashed potatoes.
Right?
Or whipped potatoes, but they don't,
Baked potatoes.
right,
It's big.
they don't do the smashed, and the smashed is, it's a roasted potato that's not having to be fully roasted because of how we boil them first. So all we're doing is, by the roasting process, is we're creating a different flavor profile from the high heat of the oven. Right? So the potato itself, the flesh is already cooked, it's tender, but then we add the butter and we add the herbs, and then we're gonna cook all that together. So when we go to eat it, it'll have this nice light little crispiness to it without it being
Right. look
like
at
a
this.
twice baked potato. So we're gonna pop these in our oven here. We're gonna flip our chickens over here. Crank this guy back up. See how we have good caramelization on our chicken there? All this caramelization, that's what we're looking for. That's a huge piece to the end result. We're
Absolutely.
extracting sugars, we're creating more flavor. The reason we want to do that is our end result is gonna be
Right.
so much more than if we were to boil it or if we were just to pop these in the oven and bake them.
Right.
Baking chicken, not one of my preferences, but people like to do it because they feel like it's an easy process. It is. Always sear first.
Okay.
Anytime you're gonna bake or roast chicken, you want to sear it. Anytime you're gonna roast beef or pork loin, sear it, seal in the juices. It'll change the outcome of the end result.
Right.
It'll allow that meat to be tender when you serve it at the table, as opposed to hearing, wow, this is tough. Tastes delicious, but it's tough, right?
Right.
So you really want to eliminate that part of it when you go to sear. So searing seals in the juices.
Absolutely.
Good here. So for our sake,
Wanna try it for one more under? No.
we'll finish in that one.
Okay.
So these guys are done. It's fine. For time. So next thing's next. Once we've seared our chicken,
Okay.
our cutlets, and they're cooked. These are cooked pretty much all the way through. Right now, they're resting. They're allowing those juices to flow back into one another. If we just stuck a thermometer there, we're trying to achieve at minimum 160 degrees.
Got it.
They say 165. If you cook your chicken breast to 165, chances are it'll be done. That kills all the bacteria. If you cook it to 160, once you pull it out of the heat, it'll still raise temperature to that 165 with killing any potential bacteria and then allowing that moisture to be maintained. That's something that we want to do. So now that we have our nice hot pan, we're gonna
Alright.
add some garlic.
Always a favorite.
And the other favorite of ours is the shallot.
Oh, yeah.
This has the flavor and just really gets you where you want to go. And add a little olive oil to that. We're gonna saute, which is high heat, a little bit of fat.
Gotcha.
Give it a stir here. Anything will work. So all this brown that you see in the pot, we want to keep that in there. It's called fond.
Okay.
That fond is sugar that has been released from our chicken. We want to capture that in our sauce that we're about to make. Exactly. If we use 5 pots to make one thing, we got a lot of dishes to do.
Mhm.
2, we're not able to capture all of the potential flavor that we want to. So we're gonna saute our shallots and our garlic for about a minute, minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes. And all we're really looking for is the shallot to be translucent like onions. You want to be able to kind of see through it. You want to make sure that our flame isn't too hot that we're burning garlic.
Right.
We want to make sure that we do not burn any garlic in the process or the shallot. If we burn garlic in the process, throw it in the trash, start from the beginning. Once you burn garlic, it's a bitter taste that you will never be able to get out of your sauce.
Good to know. In go the mushroom.
We're gonna add our mushies.
And they really cook down. So putting quite a bit in there, you want to put in more than you think you're going to.
Well, and you can add a little more too, right? So yes, so it'll cook down by more than half.
Okay.
So what our level of mushroom is, by the time they're sauteed, it will be more than half. So we have a little more room in the pan. We've got enough to fit it. Let's just do ahead and do it.
Let's get her done.
That's right.
Look, I love mushrooms, so I don't think you can have too many of those.
I agree. So we've added water to our pan. Did we add any water to our pan?
We did not.
We did not. All these mushrooms have water in it.
Oh, so
right?
they're gonna release
Lots-
their water.
Lots of water. So they will release it. We are, if you notice, you wanna poke in over here. We've absorbed all the oil in the pan for the most part with our mushroom, right? We're gonna wanna add a little bit more. You don't wanna add too much because once the water extracts from the mushroom, it'll separate the oil that we're gonna add
Okay.
and the water. So you just wanna add a little more so that way we prevent burning. So we're just adding that little bit more to help the saute. We need that fat
We do.
to saute. If we do not add that fat, we're just now steaming. Because once the water is released, it's just gonna steam the process and our mushrooms will not get the flavor that we're looking for. So the high heat with a little bit of fat is what's gonna capture the flavor that we're looking for. So as you see, mushrooms are breaking down. And if you'll see here, probably coming up real quickly, when I move it, the water from the mushroom is being released. So let's just let it sit here for, a couple seconds and we'll see. Once we move that, you'll see all that water content that is now in the pan.
Right. I didn't even realize that mushrooms release that much water. It'll be interesting to see it.
Yeah, that's pretty much like the human body. A mushroom is mostly water.
Right.
So you see now,
Starting to get more.
you're seeing more and more of the water coming out as we stir, right?
And as they soften and,
Yep, so you can see here. All that bubbling, that's not any fat. That's water now steaming off of our hot pan.
right.
So the water is being released from the raw mushroom. So we're gonna give these probably about 1 more minute, maybe 2 more minutes. Then we're gonna want to add our beer. If I'm not mistaken. Our Worcestershire is after that. So once our mushrooms.
Two different types of beer?
They're the same, but due to our cameraman tonight, she provided us with some Arizona's finest
Oh, Arizona.
Guinness.
Okay, I love it.
Very fancy can.
That is cool.
I like it.
And I love to get local.
It's pretty creative.
Shout out to local.
So now you can see the water content.
Wow, really a
You
lot.
see, there is a lot of water in there.
Wow.
So as
interesting.
you let it cook, you can see there's a lot of water in there. Right?
And you can really see how this cooked down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, definitely.
Spinach works the same way.
Absolutely.
Cabbage, same way. There's a lot of water in that. In the flesh of those vegetables that release when you add the heat to it. Making sure we're on high heat. So here's one thing. When we would add some type of acidity or alcohol, so let's just take a look at how much water now we're actually doing.
Okay. Wow, it's just amazing how that
Look at all,
breaks down. Yep.
right? That's all love. Don't get rid of it. But this now shows us how much we need to add
Okay.
of the beer, or if you were to add wine, you were to add, like we're gonna add a little Worcestershire to add a little flavor to it. You want to make sure that you're not going to add so much liquid that you can't get it out. Because if you get it out, you have to either strain it or just boil the heck out of it, right? We're not wanting to, we don't have that kind of time. So I just want to show that there's a lot of water in there. All the fond that's at the bottom of the pan has been released due to this moisture. When we saute and we create that caramelization on our pans, it creates that fond, it sticks to the pan. We want to release that by adding some kind of acidity to it. Whether it's lemon juice, orange juice, vodka, white wine, red wine, vinegar. I mean, you can even deglaze pans with water, but you're not gonna be able to extract the flavors as much as you would like to by adding the water. You'll have to sit there and scrub and scrub and scrub. If you add the acidity, it releases it from the pan that then allow it to be
Cooked
back
into
into
the
the
food.
sauce that we're trying to make. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I love that you explained that, just so we understand the process of how it's actually cooking.
Yeah, so we're gonna turn it up because we want it to boil
Okay,
out.
so
We
we're going
want
back
it,
up to high.
we're gonna add just a little bit more
So where were
beer.
you at? About half your can? A little more, 3/4?
Yeah, no, we're right about half.
Okay.
And the reason being is because of
All that
all the
liquid.
moisture that we added to it, all the mushrooms we added. Everyone at home's not gonna have that amount because they didn't add the amount that we added.
So feel free to add a little more if you don't have as much moisture.
Absolutely, add as much as you want. So adding more and cooking it down at a high heat, reducing the beer and the mushroom au jus, because au jus is the liquid released from, it's the water released from whatever it is, whether it's beef, pork, chicken, mushrooms, spinach, kale. That's the au jus.
Gotcha.
So you want to add a little bit to that. So as we reduce it, we fortify the flavor. We release the sugar and evaporate the water. So that's what creates that fortification. Very, very rich flavor. Let's take a peek at our potatoes, shall we? Ooh, look at those guys. Look good.
Wow.
We're just gonna We're gonna do a little spin here, just so we can create a little more color. They look really good. We want them to go a little longer to create a little more caramelization. We want them to crisp up slightly, not a lot, but just a little bit. So that works perfectly because now that our sauce is reducing, we're gonna want to add some thyme.
Okay.
You could add this butter if you wanted to. I wouldn't recommend it per se. Couple things. One, we can just chop it up and put it in. If you have more time to let this reduce down, you could just throw these in there and pull the stems out later. Because the leaves will fall right off.
And cook into the.
Yep, and they'll cook right into it. For the sake of it, we'll just peel off our leaves. And then we'll chop any extra stems. So really trying to capture that flavor. So by keeping it as close as possible, making our cuts as close as possible is what's going to allow us to make that mince of our herbs. You want to add slightly a little bit more than that.
How's everyone else doing at home? Is anyone that's finished have photos of your meal?
We got to see
Your-
the pictures.
Yes, we'd love to see photos of your drink, maybe your whole meal put together. Definitely send those in the chat box, send them to the team, so we can post them online. We'd love to show everybody how it's going out there.
Absolutely.
And as we're kind of nearing an end here tonight, we want to thank you all for joining. We love that some of you have joined before, but for anyone who's new tonight, thank you so much for joining us.
Tell your
Love
friends,
having
come
you.
back next month. That's right.
Love it. Oops.
So we've added our fresh thyme there. We're gonna add a little bit of this special
Oh.
Worcestershire.
Let's see how that goes.
Yeah.
So this is just gonna add some saltiness and a little more acidity, right?
Okay.
And what that's gonna do is once all the flavors combine,
Smells amazing.
we need honey. We're gonna use some of our syrup will be fine. A little sweetener. The reason we want that is because Guinness has that bitterness to it.
Right.
It is cooked with molasses, so it has a sweetness to it, but the end has that bitterness. We want to get rid of that bitterness. So basically all we're doing here is we're reducing the liquid, the water content. As we fortify it, it'll thicken up naturally. If you achieved the flavor that you want and you're running out of time, you could make a slurry, which is cornstarch and water. It's equal parts cornstarch to water. So if you were to take a tablespoon of cornstarch and a tablespoon of water and mix it up so it's a slurry as it is, it'll be thick but runny, so kind of like an egg white.
Okay.
So you notice how an egg white is
Right.
runny, but it has that thickness to it. That's
Absolutely.
kind of the consistency that you're looking for in a slurry. You can add that to that and it would
Thicken it up.
thicken it. If you add any type of slurry to your sauces to thicken them, you want to let it cook for at least 8 to 10 minutes on a low simmer. What happens is it cooks out the cornstarch flavor. If you were to add it in and pull it right off, you'd go, this tastes good, but it's flat.
Right.
And by flat, there's no excelling flavors of what we've added to your palate. When you reduce that, you cook out the cornstarch, which the cornstarch coats your palate. So your taste buds are just coated over with the cornstarch. You don't get all those love flavors that we've added to it. So you want to make sure that you cook out that cornstarch to allow all the flavors to be vibrant in
Present, yeah,
your
okay.
sauce. Yeah.
So how long do you cook it and how do you know when it's done? By the texture, by how much liquid's in it?
Yeah. So right now, I mean, we could just do a taste test, which is always something that we want to do. Since you're the boss.
No, I don't know what I'm tasting. So you
Yeah,
take
you
it.
do.
No, I don't. No, you go.
No, you have to, and you'll tell me.
No, I'm not
Come
gonna
on,
do
you'll
that.
know,
All right.
you'll say, yes, it's there, yes, it needs salt, yes, it needs pepper.
Well, personally, I like the idea of pepper added.
Okay, so pepper, right?
Mhm.
I'll give you some pepper. We're gonna add a little salt too.
Okay.
The salt enhances the flavor. So is it sweet enough? That's what we're asking ourselves. Is there enough sweetness?
I feel like there's sweet in
I
it.
feel like there is enough sweetness to
Yeah.
it. Is there enough earthiness, right? Meaning the mushrooms are present. Is the thyme present? Is it very pungent? Meaning like as soon as you taste it, does it punch you in the face with one flavor or another? Or it kind of mellows in and settles, right?
I think, yeah. I think
That's
so.
what you want. You want it to be mellow. You want the flavors to layer on your taste buds. You
Right.
want them to go, ooh, here's this, and then, oh, there's that, and then here's this, and then here's that. As opposed to, boom, there's rosemary, and then everything else is gone.
Right.
So you lose the mushroom, you lose the Guinness, you lose all those flavors. We just added a little salt and pepper to help enhance the flavors that we have. If you see in the back here, you see the thickness of the sauce.
Yep.
It's still runny, but it is fortifying. So it is thickening up to create a glaze naturally. That's what you really, really want. So when you make sauces, you're looking for nappe or nap. Nappe is to coat the back of a spoon.
Mhm.
So if we were to add a little bit of slurry to this and dip our spoon in there, and we would
What's
do
that?
this, it would then coat the back of the spoon and run off. It wouldn't paste to the back of it, meaning
Right.
stick to it, and as we lifted it, stuck there. If we were to dip the spoon in there and pull it out and it just lightly coats it and all runs off, but that coat stays on,
Mhm.
that's what you're looking for when you're making sausage. So as you can see over here in the corner, where that thickness is being created, the
Right.
body, you can see that there's a little more body to it as opposed to the looseness. And the only reason that is because we're evaporating the water and all that sugar is being pushed to that one side, right? So for the sake of it, we might as well teach the slurry, right? Let's see where we're at. I think let's add a little more salt. A little more pepper. I think the flavor of mushroom, the flavor of thyme, the flavor of Guinness is there. We want to not overpower anything. Right?
Right.
So cornstarch.
Over there. Do you know where that is? Or
And then the top chicken went over at the top.
So if we get a little bowl out of the bottom there, or actually that's right there. Yep. So, like I said, tablespoon, slowly add your water to create. You saw, see how now,
yeah.
see how it's, the
Mhm.
paste is there. Like I said, there's a thickness, but it's runny at the same time. See how that is?
Right.
So you're about to watch how that changes
gonna-
this.
Speed up our process
All
here as
we're-
everybody's starving. And thank you guys for being patient tonight.
Look at-
We're running a little over.
See how fast that is? See how immediately it thickened up that sauce?
Oh, yeah, immediately. So it really helps you if you guys are trying to speed things up and
Well, and it's,
dinner, you're getting dinner together.
they call it tightening it up. You want to tighten it up. You want to make sure that you're able to coat the back of a spoon or coat your chicken, coat your beef. You want to make
Absolutely.
sure that you're coating it. You don't want it to run all over your plate when you serve it. You want it to coat it. So as you see how much thicker now. So before, now look, we can move and you can see the bottom.
Right.
Now we have the glaze that we're wanting to serve over our chicken.
Yeah, big difference.
So let's let that turn it down. We'll let that reduce down a little bit.
Perfect.
Let's pull our taters
Potatoes
out.
out. Should we pop this chicken in there?
Yeah. Just do this. 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 Pull this off. So let's pop the chicken in real quick. That's only gonna take a couple minutes. So pop that in the oven there. Does anyone have any questions?
No questions from the group? Are you guys showing us pictures? Jen, do we have any pictures in the chat box?
Yeah, we did this.
Fantastic. How's it looking? What do you guys think? Love it?
We've got a lot of compliments on this particular recipe. I know Will has texted me, Marianne's texted me.
Oh,
Got
fantastic.
comments in the chat.
Love it.
All I did was thin this out slightly.
Perfect.
Now
And I
I
got you a plate for plating.
put just in. So plating purposes. Let's grab a couple of our smashed potatoes. A little bit.
And they really decorate up the plate that way too. Not only will they have all
Change,
of
just
the,
totally
changes.
changes it. And just the flavor profile. is
Right.
Completely different. It
Love it.
changes it up. It allows you to utilize the same menu item differently.
I know, I love
You
that.
know, and the beauty is you can put cheese on here, it goes on and on and on about the different things you want. So like, we could do a very similar and use Yukon Golds instead of reds. When we did the Super Bowl appetizer, same concept, boil the potato, put them on a sheet pan, smash them, bacon, cheddar cheese. And now you have this appetizer that, what the world is this? It's not a potato skin,
Right.
but it is, right? So
Love that.
it's almost like a loaded baked potato.
Mini
Form of
size.
it, yeah, absolutely. So those are the, the beauties of making it versatile, using the same product and applying it differently to get a completely different result. And that's really what you want to do.
Love that.
Is there a green vegetable to go with this?
Brussels sprouts. Any vegetable really. I mean, if you want to stick to the true of St. Patrick's Day, do cabbage. What you could do is you could just take some cabbage and roast it. You could just take it and saute it, a little bit of bacon, a little bit of white onion, and just braise it down. You could saute your cabbage, pour your beer in there. When you put your potatoes in the oven, throw your cabbage in the oven at the same time. Little baby carrots in it there. And then that's a whole vegetable option that is completely compliable to exactly what we do.
Wow, that sounds delicious.
And Brandon Hattie said it's their new favorite potato.
Oh, I love it.
Christina and Neil loved it. She said it was easy to make meal. And great tip from the chef.
Wonderful. Thank you, Christina. That looks delicious. All right, we're gonna put that up front here. Julian with our.
And just like that, we have our
Very
Guinness
good.
glazed chicken. So like we said, we learned lots of versatile things. Remember,
Absolutely.
when you're cooking, don't be intimidated. You want to make sure you're confident. You want to make sure that we can do this.
Right.
And as long as you don't burn it, you can always fix it.
I like that idea. And everybody, please, thank you so much for joining us. We love having you in our kitchen for Chef Night once a month. It's just something that we love doing.
Thank
And
you so much.
Chef,
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
giving us great tips and teaching us how to cook and create a new dish that we can all make with our friends and family. And the potatoes, what a great way to do kind of a traditional staple, a little bit different way. So
Absolutely.
love it. And cheers, everybody. Have a great night. And we look forward to seeing you next week at Wealth Building.
Absolutely.
Have a great night.